Alright guys, welcome back to part 3 of how to do Karnaugh mapping and form equations, right? So in this video, we're going to focus on equation number G for this Karnaugh map, and we're going to see what equations we can figure out, okay? So let's go back to our basic rules. We either have 1 box, 2 box, 4 box, 8 box, and if all of this doesn't make sense to you, please make sure to go back and watch part 1 and part 2 to get a better understanding of how to map Karnaugh maps and form equations, right? So I would ask you guys now just to pause the video, just try this question out for yourself, see if you get the right answer, just to practice your own skills so you're not just copying what I do, right? So please pause the video and see if you guys can do it yourself first and give it a try. And now for the people that are watching, let's see what we can do here. So let's start with 8 circles, right? Or 8 boxes, I should say. And we have to circle in 8. Is it possible to circle 8 in one go? If we look at here, it's not possible to circle 8 ones, including the variable, in one go. It's just not possible. So now we know that 8 is out of the picture. Let's try 4. Let's see how many 4s we can circle, right? So I see a 4 right here, right? So let's do a 4 right here, right? So we can circle 4 boxes of 1s right here. If we include this 1, we have 4 boxes of 1s right here. If we include the D, right? So let me just change that color. So we have 4 boxes of 1s over here. We can add another 4 boxes of 1s here if we include these variables to include this one over here, right? So we have 4 right here. And then for these two, if you guys remember from part 1, we can circle corners, but it's important to mention this example, we can also circle sides, okay? So this also applies to sides if they're on the same row. If they're on the same row, we can circle the sides, right? So we can do these two, right? Along with these two to make a box of 4, right? And if you guys are wondering why we're able to circle this one and this one, it's because they're on the same row. Okay, if they're on the same row, we can circle it, or if they're on the same column, we can circle it. So for example, if there's a 1 here and a 1 here, we can circle it like this. Only if they're on the same row or on the same column, if they're not corner pieces, okay? If that makes sense. So knowing that, let's see if we can formulate an equation, okay? Just gonna write down G over here. And let's start with our black box. So let's see what equation we can find for this one. Let's erase this so just you can see our values, right? So let's see what equation we can have for our black box. We know that A is equal to 1 for both rows, so we know that stays consistent. We can go ahead and put A. B is not consistent because you have a 1 and a 0, so we know that B is canceled from the equation, right? If you go on the top, 0 is 0, C is 0 for the first column, and C is 1 for the second column. C is not consistent, so that is canceled. What about D? D is 1 for the first column. D is 1 also for the second column. So we know that that stays consistent, so we can go ahead and put D. So our equation for the black box is AD. Let's go ahead and put an or sign over here. And let's see what else we get. So now that we finished our black box, or our black circle, I should say, sorry. Now we finished our black circle, let's go ahead and look at the green circle. So for our green circle, we only have 1 row. So we know that A is 1 consistent throughout this whole row. B is 1 consistent throughout this whole row. So A and B are both consistent as 1. So we can go ahead and put plus AB. Now what about C and D? C is 0 for the first row, but C is 0 for the first column, but then C is 1 for the third column, right over here. So then that means that C is not consistent for all these values circled in the green circle. For the same thing as D, so D is 0 for the first column, but D is 1 for the second column, so all of it's not consistent for the green circle, so we know that C and D are both canceled, so then our final equation is just A and B, alright, so that's for the green circle. Now moving forward, how about the blue circle, right? So the blue circle, for the first row, A is equal to 0, right? So A is equal to 0 for the first row. We see that A is equal to 0 for the second row. So we know that A is equal to 0 in both the first row and second row for all these 1s that are in the blue circle. So A is consistent. So let's go ahead and put plus A bar to represent A when it's 0. Then we have B is equal to 0 for the first row. B is equal to 1 for the second row. For all the ones that are in the blue circle, it's not consistent, so B gets canceled. What about C? C is equal to 0 for the first column, and C is equal to 0 also for the second column. So we know that C is equal to 0 for this whole blue circle range for it equal to 1. So C is consistent, so we can go ahead and put C bar because it's C when it's equal to 0. So the bar also represents 0, just a quick reminder. And what about D, right? So D is equal to 0 for the first column, and D is equal to 1 for the second column. So D is not consistent. So we do not include D in our equation because it's not consistent for the blue circle, right? So now we have 3 circles, 3 equations, and now we have to do our last circle, right? Which is the red circle. So let's go ahead and just erase everything really quick. A red circle, and we can draw it back over here. So we have a red circle over here, okay? So now let's see what our final equation is for the circle. Okay, so our red circle, and let's see what we get. So we see that A is 0 for the first row. So if we look at it as a row, A is 0, and A is also 0 for the second row. So for the ones, A is 0 for each one. So if you look at this one here, A is 0, this one, A is 0. For this one, A is still 0 in the same row, and for this one, A is still 0 in the same row. So we can go ahead and put A bar, right? Because A is consistent. What about B? B is not consistent because, as you can see here, B is 0 for the first row, and B is 1 for the second row for the ones, right? So it's not consistent, so B gets canceled. What about C and D? We can see here that C is 0 for the first column, but then C is 1 for these ones, right? So C is not consistent. C is only 0 for these ones and 1 for these ones. So since it's not consistent, C gets canceled from the equation. What about D? You can see here that D is 0, right? D is 0 for the first column, and D is also 0 for the second column. So D is 0 for all these ones in the red circle, as you can see here, right? So for all these ones, D is still 0. So we know that that is still consistent, right? So we can go ahead and put D bar over here. And now we have 4 circles and 4 equations, and ultimately this is what our final equation is going to look like for the G Karnaugh map with our 4 circles, okay? So then that is our final answer. If you guys enjoyed the video and understood, please make sure to like, comment, share, and subscribe. If you guys have any questions about this problem or any specific problems, or want me to cover any other topics that you guys want to make a video on, please make sure to comment down below or send me an email at sharranacademy@gmail.com, and I'll make sure to make a video on it as soon as possible. Alright, thanks for watching, guys.